In this video, we're going to talk about one of my favorite aspects of the Viking Age, music. Join me on this adventure and we will learn about archaeological evidence, replicas of Viking Age musical instruments, and discuss the role of music in the Viking Age. So grab yourself your favorite drink or snack and let's begin the adventure. I am going to the reconstructed Viking town of Ribe at the Ribe Viking Center to meet up with Jens, who specializes in historical instruments. He does research on the sources and he reconstructs instruments, and he spends a lot of his time at the Ribe Viking Center sharing his experience and his knowledge to the visitors. Jens has agreed to meet me here and help me understand the role of music in the Viking Age better. And maybe let me try to play one of his instruments to see if I can make real Viking music with my own two hands. I have spent a lot of my time as a musician singing folk songs and telling stories, so I am really excited to learn more about the Viking Age music. I have met Jens many times here at the Ribe Viking Center, and often on a sunny day you'll find him sitting in the shadow under a thatched roof of a reconstructed Viking house, surrounded by people, both visitors and other reenactors as well, bringing the Viking Age to life in front of our eyes and our ears with his very own unique style, with his instrument and with his music. So I guess it goes without saying that I am very excited to meet with Jens here and learn more. Jens, could you present yourself and maybe tell us a little bit about what is your connection with this Viking Age music and where did it all start?
Well, my name is Jens and I live in Ribe. I'm very fortunate to live in this beautiful old city, and have always been interested in history. And especially the Viking Age. As a child it was very fascinating. And then suddenly I got that urge to, I really want to be a part of that Viking reenactment scene. And of course, we have this wonderful Viking Center out here. I would like to do something that is apart from the others. And since I always loved music, I have been in a real rock and roll band in my young days, so I love music, and I thought, I'll try to dive into the instruments from the Viking Age. What did they have and what do we know about it? And then I started with building my first lyre. And oh boy, that was a crappy piece of wood. But I got started, and I could feel, if I continue, I'll get better. You always get better at things when you just do it again. So I started to build another one and another one. And suddenly it started to look nice and sound nice. And then I built another instrument, a tal harp. It's not really Viking Age, but it evolves, and you're making more and more, and you find more and more out. And then I take my instruments, I take them out here, and I play them as good as I can. And I found out that very many people comes over and say, "Hey, what is that? That looks so fantastic. It sounds nice." And then I, tell people the history about the instruments in the Viking Age, what we know about them and what we don't know about them. And I found out that very many people are drawn to the music. And when you're going in a Viking village, you hear all those sounds from animals, people laughing, and the smith is hammering his hammer, and all the sounds. But when there's some music in the background also, it makes a very wonderful compilation. Well, so that's what I do primarily as a Viking reenactor.
Okay, first of all, it is so nice to be here with you, Jens, and I'm really looking forward to all the things we're going to talk about. But I've been really thinking, is there something general you can say about Viking music? I know we're going to dive into the more specific finds with the instruments in a little while, but is there something general there is to say that would make sense to put into this context now?
Let's start with, we don't know very little. Very little we know, because the Vikings or the Scandinavians, they didn't write notes down, they didn't write very much down. So how the music would have sounded like, we have no idea. We simply have no idea. And for me personally, that's a great thing, because then nobody can come and tell me, well, you're not playing it right and it doesn't sound right, because nobody knows. And you can say the oldest melody and song we have from Scandinavia is the I dreamt me a dream this night.
Yeah.
Drømte mig en drøm i nat.
Yeah.
And that's the oldest song that we have with notes, the medieval notes, and the lyrics are written in runes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's from the 12th century.
Okay.
So that's some 100 years after the Viking Age.
Yeah.
So that's all we have, really. So nobody really knows how it would sound, but we have the instruments.
Yeah.
And we have some instruments that are almost complete, like the Trossingen Lyre.
Yeah.
And we also have a very intact piece of the Falster Pipe. And we have many fragments all over the place from Scandinavia and also from the Baltics and Eastern Europe. And so we really know a lot about how they looked. And we can also draw, when you have a lyre with 6 strings and you have tuning pegs, you can tune the instrument. And that's very important, because if you do the work and make an instrument you can tune, then they actually had a very great knowledge about how you will tune it, and you can tune it in different ways and make different melodies. So it's in one sense it's very advanced, and it's also very primitive if you take a flute, like a reed flute or something like that. So yeah. So I made a little bag for my flutes. Well, let's start with the beginning, with the bone flute. Well, this is the beginning of all instruments, because already the Neanderthals made bone flutes. And we have finds that is from the Viking Age with the bone flutes. So for sure they had those. And what we can say about flutes in that time is it's a very simple instrument, so you can easily make one. And the next flute we have here, this is my copy of the Jorvik pan flute. And this flute was found in the big excavation that they made in York, in Coppergate. And there they found this beautiful little flute. And you can see it's a solid piece of wood, and then the holes are drilled in different depths, thereby making the different tones. And actually this one was tuned in with the A, B, C, D, E. And the beautiful thing about this flute is that it's sturdy. You can drop it on the floor, you can bash it around, and you can hang it around your neck or in your belt, so you always have your little flute ready. And the next instrument in the wind instruments family is this one, and of course this one. Actually, they are the same. It's a reed instrument, and you can see here in the end we have a reed, because it is a reed instrument like a bagpipe. It also uses reeds. And well, the first one, that's the one from Falster. We call it the Falster Pipe. And it was found under excavation on the island Falster. It was an old Viking shipyard, and there it lay, the wooden piece of it, the wooden part of it.
Wow.
And it was, of course, when you take it off, and it was made so that you can easily see that something would sit on here,
Yeah.
and something would sit in that end, and then you put a reed in it. It's the only explanation how that would work as a wind instrument. Yeah. And then we have the Lund, that's Sweden. I can't remember exactly how they found it, but it was obviously under excavation. And then they found this one from Lund. But they also found an impression in that could be interpreted like a piece of leather, a leather bag.
So we had a bagpipe.
Probably.
Wow.
But they are not sure, but, well, it would not be a far-fetched.
Yeah. Wow, that is really
because
fascinating.
you can actually, if you take a bagpipe and you would stuff this up, it would work.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So it survived in some way down the ages.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, the next one, you could actually say, I have no proof that they had this in the Viking Age. But if you go back in Germany in the early medieval times, they had this, they call a gemshorn or gems flute, because it is a flute. It's not a blowing horn, and it's a very simple instrument. So I strongly believe that in some form they also made some cow horn flutes in the Viking Age, but we have not found it, so I can't prove it. We can make the jump to Norway, because there we have the famous sheep's horns, the gems horn or the bucko horn.
Yeah.
And,
ram's horn.
Yeah. And that we know for sure that they have in the Viking Age in Norway for signaling between the valleys and so on, and also for making music. And when you're sitting out there and herding the sheep, you can sit and play some tunes, and also signaling to the neighbor sheep or cow herd.
Yeah.
And maybe, are you lonely? And,
They could have whole conversations.
Yeah, exactly.
But what about this that we see in pop culture, and then I have this image of Viking warriors blowing into a big hollow cow horn to signal battle or something. Do we have? Is that just Hollywood, or do you think that could have been possible?
Well, actually, I really don't know. But horns have been used for signaling since millennia, and of course they would have used some horns to signaling from ship to ship, or from the leader of the warriors is signaling, we are attacking now.
Yeah.
So, of course they would have used it. And also, when 5 ships are sailing along together and there's coming fog, how do you know how near and how far the other ships are?
Oh,
So
yeah.
you definitely have a signaling
Yeah.
horn, of course.
So this is one of the many things where we have very concrete and solid sources for something, and something just have to be guesswork, but common sense in a way. Yeah. Such a nice and mellow sound.
Well, there's a deep contrast between this mellow sound and the Falster Pipe.
Yeah,
yeah, for
definitely,
sure.
yeah.
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 And this is also very shrill.
Yeah.
But you can actually make them. The bigger they get, the more soft.
Of course.
Yeah.
And then we have the big one left here.
This one is called in Danish and Norwegian so a sejlfløjte. And actually, in the willow in the spring, the willow is sucking all the water up in its branches. Then you can take a piece of branch, then you knock it all the way, and then you can actually pull the bark hole off. Then you have a tube of bark, and there you can make a flute. But of course, that is not lasting for very long, maybe 2 months, then it's crumbling to dust. And the smart people and the historians and the people say that it's a very old instrument, but of course we have no proof in that sense that we don't find some crumbling bark from the Viking or Iron Age. But it also is very much still in use in the eastern part of Europe, and this is a modern one made of wood, so it lasts longer. And here's the sound, some sound from it.
So now we have seen a lot of the wind instruments, and it's clear to me that there is evidence from the Viking Age of various types of wind instruments, but also way further back in archaeology. And like Jens said, it's one of the oldest. It's the beginning of all instruments. Now we are slowly getting ready to move on to the stringed instruments, and I myself play stringed instruments, so I'm really curious about this part, and I can hear in the background Jens is tuning the instruments up, trying to get them ready. It's a little difficult for us here. It's very cold today. It's a very foggy day, and the humidity in the air is very high. So we have to take some time here and get them all ready.
And now we are moving over to this instrument. And first, I have to say, this is my interpretation of the Hedeby, Gigge or Rebek. And why is that? Because if you see the form, the length and everything, the dimensions are like the original. But if you look at the thickness, it's not as thick as the original. And why is that? That's because I didn't have a piece of wood that was thick enough. So I thought, what the hell? I tried to make one anyway and see if the sound is bad or anything. But actually, the sound is great, I think. And the Hedeby, Gigge, Rebek was from excavation in Hedeby Heidebu, now in the northern part of Germany. Before it was Danish. And they found it. And actually, the only thing that they found was the bowl. There were no tuning pegs, there was no tailpiece, there was actually just the bowl. What we can see is that during the procedure of hollowing out the body, at some point a big chunk of the sides was breaking off. And unfortunately for the maker of the instrument, it meant that he just decided to throw it away. And that's why they found it. So we only have the bowl. There's a hole in for the tailpiece holding here. There was not drilled any holes for tuning pegs, but of course he didn't do that because it was he threw it away. Now this instrument is a unica in that sense that it's the only type of that instrument we have really found in Scandinavia. If we are going to Russia and Ukraine, we find this instrument still today. They are playing this instrument still today. They call it a dukuk.
Dukuk.
Yeah. But it's looking almost the same and played the same way. And I like to use my imagination because could it be a Scandinavian who went down through the Russian rivers and visited the trading post there, and then he heard somebody play an instrument like this, and then he went home to Hedeby, and maybe he thought to himself, I want to make an instrument like this because then I can impress all the other villagers in Hedeby by playing this instrument. But unfortunately it did break for him and he didn't get that far. Or maybe he made another one that worked. Who knows?
You're saying this because we have an instrument found in the Viking area, but it doesn't really fit in the Viking area. So we assume that this might have been a rare instrument for our local region.
Yeah. Because if it was a common instrument, we have found more of them. Like the lyre, we have found many lyres over the time, but this is a unica.
I guess it maybe for our modern brains, it helps us to understand history, or we feel comfortable when the history is put into a context where we can imagine more than just what we see.
So I would warn people beforehand because I just made this instrument, and I must say that those kind of bowed instruments are actually quite difficult to play on, or learning to play on them. And so please forgive me that the sound is not really the best, and also the weather is playing in. So, yeah.
Ja.
Ja.
Den sidste tur her, det var fandme godt.
And now we are coming to the king of the instruments, as I like to say, because that's of course the lyre, or the lyre. And the lyre is of course a very, very old instrument. The first findings of lyre, we have the Southern Lyre, and we have the Trossingen Lyre, and we have the Ribe Lyre. And the first one, I think it's dating back to the 5th or 6th century. So that's very much Iron Age. And they live up through the Viking Age, and then we come to the early medieval times where they are changing instruments to something more what they think it's advanced. But it's a very old instrument. The lyre is at one point a very sophisticated instrument, but again a very simple instrument. The reason that I say it's the king of the instrument is, first of all, it takes long time and resources to make an instrument like this. With Viking Age tools, it takes a long time to make a beautiful instrument like this. And it's also very sophisticated because it has tuning pegs, and that means you can tune a lyre very precise, and you can also tune it in different ways. So that gives us a very good idea that if you take the simple wind instrument, the flute and so on, it's easy to make, but you cannot tune it in so many ways. Clearly, you can do it that with the lyre. So it's also a very prestigious and high-end instrument, but at the same time, the Ribe Lyre was found in a totally common merchant house, not a jarl, not a king, but a merchant, a trader who had a lyre. And therefore we can say, well, yes, it's a very prestigious and high-end instrument because it takes time and money to make, but at the same time we have found one in a totally normal merchant trading house in Ribe. So that's a new thing that we know now. So Rasmus, I have to admit I'm cheating a little bit because in the Viking Age and Iron Age they would use sheep's gut as strings.
Oh, yeah. Natural material.
Natural. And I like to take my instruments out in rain and sun, and we know when it's moist, like today, the strings will expand.
Yeah.
And when the sun comes, it will extract and shrink together, and you can go and tune the damn thing all the time.
Yeah.
I really don't like that. So I'm putting Nile gut. It's artificial gut.
Yeah. I know them from my banjo as well.
Yeah. And actually the sound is so similar to the real thing that you can't, well, a really skilled ear could maybe hear the difference, but you can play it. I tuned it one time and it stayed.
Yeah. Yes, I suppose that is one of these calculated compromises every reenactor needs to make at some point in their field, because it also has to be practical. And I know you use these instruments in all kinds of weather, like you say, and you have to have them in tune for displaying them and giving examples for the public and the other reenactors. So I totally understand that. I do.
Yeah, because people are coming and wow, what are you doing?
Yeah.
They want to hear. Then wait, I have to and then people are and going away.
They're gone.
They're gone.
So that's it.
Most people will notice when they hear a lyre, it's very similar to a harp.
Yeah.
And all people love the lyre because it has so a nice, soothing sound.
It's like velvet.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. Messing eller bronze eller et eller andet. Og man har brugt fjer.
Ja.
Så
When Jens was building the replica of the lyre from the recent excavations in Ribe, he was contacted by the local history museum and asked if he could build a replica for them. And of course he did. So if you visit the museum, Ribe's Vikinger, in the town of Ribe, a few kilometers from where we are now at the Ribe Viking Center, you can see the original remains of the lyre with the replica next to it. The exhibition is made in such a way that you can put your hand through a hole in the glass and try to play the strings of the lyre for yourself.
And this instrument, oh, the lyre is playing along. This instrument is called a Novgorod Gusli. And this one was found in Novgorod, now Russia, and it's dating to the 1030s. So it's clearly a Viking Age era instrument. But we have never found instrument like this in Scandinavia. And there's a very charming history to this instrument because on the original, on the back or on the sides, there is a carving, an inscription that says a nightingale. It's called a nightingale. So that's the the instrument has a very beautiful name. Mine is calling blackbird because it's always also sings very nice. And the reason I have made instrument like this is because, first of all, it's a Viking era instrument, and I like, to expand not only the Scandinavian stuff. So I really wanted to make this instrument. And another reason that I made this instrument is because, like the Hedeby Ribe is also an instrument that comes from the eastern part of Europe. This instrument also do, of course, and it's something that maybe some Scandinavians, when they travel down the rivers, they maybe encountered this instrument and heard it. So that's also I like the possibility that it could be been heard by a Viking or a Scandinavian.
I know before we came here, we were talking if we should include this instrument from Novgorod, because, like you said, it's in modern day Russia, and in that sense, it's out of Scandinavia and the geographical context that we normally ascribe to the Viking Age. But some of these towns in Russia, Novgorod, and for example, were founded by early Vikings who made them as trading posts. So there's a lot of Viking connection to this area, and we have things. I have also reconstructions of tools and a pair of leather mittens from Novgorod. So many of the finds there, we use them as inspiration, or at least in the outskirts of our understanding of the Viking Age. Yeah.
And of course, here we have the elephant in the room, because we have no findings of drums from the Viking Age. And that makes no sense at all, that this is the only place in the whole world where we didn't have drums in the Viking Age. But of course, it's a very thin skin, and the wood, it would very easily disappear. So I hope that one day we will find some remains from the drum, so we finally can say, yes, they had drums in the Viking Age. Yeah.
Some of you might have been wondering about instruments such as the hurdy-gurdy and the jaws harp, that with their hauntingly raw and primal drone-like sounds really speaks to something very old and very easily blends into the soundscapes that we imagine for the Viking Age. But the earliest form of the hurdy-gurdy is depicted on paintings dating back to the 11th and 12th century from southern Europe in a Christian setting, and the jaws harp appear a bit later in Scandinavia. And as with all kinds of reenactment and reconstruction, there is a certain room for interpretation and guesswork. And every time new archaeological progress is done, there is a real chance to learn something new and maybe find the missing pieces of the puzzle. So what did the Viking Age really sound like? That is a question that I often ask myself. There is of course the sounds of farming and animals, the nature, the blacksmith hammering the iron on the anvil, the axes working in the timber, the crackling fire and the sound of clay cups and fine glassware, and people sharing songs and stories. But what about music? I think we all have our own idea about what the Viking Age might have sounded like. Popular culture does for sure. But as we know from movies and theatre, and even our own social gatherings and entertainment, music serves a vital role in setting the mood and ensuring that we go through certain feelings, and by lifting up the spirit.
We have some written down sources. There's description from two Arabic diplomats. One went up to Hedeby, and he wrote everything down that he observed about the Scandinavians there. And one thing he mentioned that they were singing and making some kind of music, and he described it as like dogs howling and fighting. He really thought it sounded awful. And there was another Arabic diplomat who visited some Scandinavians in the, I think it was Stad Nordic, and he also described that the awful sounds that the Vikings made. Very beautiful people, but the music and the singing was horrible. So that's, so yeah.
When creating music to accompany or depict the Viking Age in living pictures, do you strictly follow the scarce archaeological evidence and guess the scales and the rhythms in order to be as authentic as possible? Or do you find inspiration in the history, but freely interpret the signs and the timbres to fit in and emphasize or enforce what you see? I suppose it must be a matter of personal choice, but I am very curious to hear what you think. So let me know in the comments below what you think about this, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Well, we have actually some recordings from some sagas where they are telling that on a feast by a jarl or king, it's very common that during the feasting and the celebration that a skilled skjald, or a bard in English, would play the lyre and recite poetry and make songs and stories. But it was also very common that you would pass the lyre around, so it was actually expected that you will perform a poem or a song on the lyre. I always say, give people a lyre, and after 5 minutes they can make a little tune.
Yes, so here with plugging the strings with my thumb, using one as a drone, that kind of works, I think. But I've seen you also. I saw you were also almost making chords by blocking some of the strings and then playing all of them almost, or.
Then you can combine the strum and plugging and then the picking. You can.
Yeah, it is quite intuitive, but again, with the cold fingers here and getting to know it, it's I can see what you mean. It's
and actually you overcomplicate it for a beginner. try to make the strumming.
It's a Viking Age jam session here.
Det gode er, du prøver simpelthen. Der var noget der, og så kan du prøve sig frem. Altså du kunne høre det, det tager ikke lang tid før vi kunne, altså.
Ja, det er rigtigt, ja. Wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And these two together, it's we could be going on here for hours, Jens.
Exactly. That's you know, I know you are a musician too, and you know when you get instrument in your hand and you just sit and time goes by and flies away. So
one of the first times I talked to you, I was fascinated. I was lured in by the sound of the lyre here.
Yeah.
And I have talked to you before about at some point trying to build one of these my own. And I think after today I feel like yes, I need to.
You have to.
I have to. Yeah. So I will get back to you at some point and ask for some advice to see if I can make a reconstruction for my own. I can really imagine myself getting to know this kind of instrument for a longer time. So. We have now learned about some of the different instruments that Jens have reconstructed from the archaeological evidence, and we have heard the sound they can produce, sometimes haunting and melancholic, and sometimes uplifting and easy. As you might have heard, the sounds and music in this video is a variation of modern interpretations and music that fits into the Viking idea, and then of course the real historical sounds from reconstructed instruments. Jens has his own channel here on YouTube as well, and I highly recommend you to go and check it out. He goes into further detail on the various instruments and also other types and kinds of medieval instruments than the ones we've seen here today. And Jens also made some recordings using only his reconstructed instruments to give you an idea of how the Viking Age music could have sounded. I will put a link below, so go check it out and support his work by subscribing and getting involved with the videos. I have to tell you that I'm very, very grateful that you wanted to meet me here in the Viking town of Ribe.
What's the pleasure? What's the pleasure, Rasmus?
For me as well, and I must admit to hear all this information and to learn these things from you, and to have it in this kind of setting, and it has, I must admit, it had really helped me understand a lot more of the different types of instruments, both the wind instruments we talked about earlier, and of course the stringed and the bowed instruments, and then the curious thing about the drum.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely going to walk out of here with a bigger, I think a bigger understanding with these magical sounds in my head when I walk out of here, and have a new and more variated soundscape of what I think the Viking Age sounded like. So thank you so much, Jens. I want to say a huge thank you to Ribe Viking Center for letting me make this video here. This place is very important to me, and I am very attached to the place through my activities as a reenactor and with our local Viking fight group. So I thought it would be fitting to meet with Jens here, and fortunately for us it was possible. If you happen to be in Denmark, be sure to come and visit Ribe Viking Center. See it for yourself, because it is one of the best places to experience the Viking Age in the whole world. If you want to support the channel in other ways, consider visiting my Patreon page. In Patreon, you can sign up for a monthly membership, and there is early access to some of the YouTube videos. There is special posts about behind the scenes kind of things, other projects that will not make it to YouTube, and there is of course also some some exclusive content, videos from places I've been or other Viking projects that are not available on YouTube. So for a small monthly donation, you can become a member and get access to all of this. If you don't want to commit to a monthly subscription to Patreon, you can also make a one-time purchase for some of the posts, especially the video posts. So for a one-time small contribution, you get access to some of this video material that otherwise is not available. And if you don't feel like this whole Patreon thing, I'm not going to hold you up on it. I totally understand it, and I'm still very thankful for you being part of the YouTube videos here. Don't forget to click the little like button, hit the subscribe button. Feel free to write a comment. All these things, you know it. And if you write a comment to me asking questions about something you saw here or having input to some of the things I've been talking about, I am very, very grateful for that, and I will answer to the best of my ability. I really enjoy this community feeling that I get when answering and engaging in all this feedback and in the comments I get from you guys. So thank you so much.